Yeah. And so since you can't see the cover very well because the light's all shining on it, making it weird, I have a digital image I will bring up of the cover and a couple of the pages. But so long story short, this book, and please do stick with me. It will only take me 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes at most to do the entire reading that I wanted to do from here. And it's written by Hakeem Jeffries. And this is pretty much a speech he made in January of 2023, right after the Democrats had lost the majority in the House of Representatives. And then the new guard is taking over. He became the leader of the Democrats in the House of Representatives because Nancy Pelosi kind of stepped down from any leadership role at that point after a couple decades, but she stepped down, and so he took over the mantle. But unfortunately, the Democrats lost the majority at the time, so he didn't get to be the Speaker of the House. He just got to be the leader of the party that's not in the majority anyway. And so and it's called the ABCs of Democracy. And so I love this because he laid it out like an alphabet book, like a book for people just learning the alphabet. And and here is the front cover, Hakeem Jeffries, the ABCs of Democracy. And so it's the one difference between this and an alphabet book and a typical alphabet book anyway, is that alphabet books usually call out what, say, this letter is for that. Like A is for apple, B is for banana, C is for cantaloupe. I'm just giving you an example as if there were an alphabet book about fruit, maybe. Um, and this one doesn't do that. It doesn't have the letter is for part of it. It just pretty much goes right into letters. But it is like your typical alphabet book because it's very illustrated, much more image than text on every page. Like for is an A, like I said, he's not going for A is for American values. He's just saying American values over autocracy. So every single page of this, every single letter you get to, is presented kind of like a fraction. The numerator, the top thing, is something positive and good that he is. Yeah, it's maybe even inspirational for people. Whereas the one over the in the bottom, the denominator, that's one of the uglier parts of things going around in politics. And and so this one, A, brings you right to American values over autocracy. So that's how I'm going to be reading this out. It's just reading exactly the words on the page. So please do follow along. And so in this one, the A, American values over autocracy, this is actually a two-page spread in the book. Um, the 2 pages where so I want to show you other examples of one where it's just one page per letter of the alphabet. And if you get to K and then L, knowledge over kangaroo courts. I do really like the illustrations in this book, who, by the way, Hakeem Jeffries is from Brooklyn, New York. And I do believe the 8th congressional district that he represents does cover Brooklyn. And by the way, the illustrator of this book is also from Brooklyn, New York. And I just love a lot of the illustrations, like how knowledge over kangaroo courts has people reading a lot and learning. I like all the books as a symbol for knowledge. And also with liberty over limitation, I like how we have the Statue of Liberty all just chained back and held back by chains. A lot of good metaphor in the images that she's using. And this one is pretty funny. We get maturity over Mar-a-Lago. And of course, Hakeem Jeffries is the one politician. Well, he's the one standing up in a very modern suit. He's the only African American among the four guys you see there. He's illustrated in there with a couple of the founding fathers and super important presidents from the past. And this one I think is funny because it's definitely a total dig at Donald Trump. Because Mar-a-Lago, right? We got to think about, yeah, that. And I do wonder whether the classified documents case about Mar-a-Lago was already going on when he wrote this book. Not sure. Actually, I shouldn't say wrote this book. This book started as a speech he gave in January of 2023, and then they illustrated it and turned it into this book with a bunch of just little quick turns of phrase. And so the very last image I will show you before we start the reading is another two-page spread, opportunity over obstruction and people over politics. I love how in some the pages he's being pretty inspirational, putting people over politics. I think that's very important. I think sometimes politicians get too caught up with maintaining their power that they forget they're supposed to be representing the people the best they can. Anyway, so here we go back to the front cover. So Hakeem Jeffries, the ABCs of democracy. So I will do a quick reading, and the only part I'm going to skip is the two-page introduction. There's a little two-page introduction, which is the only pages on the book with all text and no images, right? And it's just sort of setting the stage, bringing you to November 2022 when the Democrats lost the House, and then January 2023 when he gave this address. And thinking of that time, um, it's not surprising at all that this book ends up being sometimes seeming very inspiring and sometimes very scary and urgent because after all, politicians they might get, yeah, they try to inspire, whereas also try to make you frightened of something else so you will follow their way. Anyway, so and I will start the reading. And it begins. American values over autocracy, benevolence over bigotry, the Constitution over the cult, democracy over demagogues, economic opportunity over extremism, freedom over fascism, governing over gaslighting, hopefulness over hatred, inclusion over isolation, justice over judicial outreach. Sorry, justice over judicial overreach, knowledge over kangaroo courts, liberty over limitation, maturity over Mar-a-Lago, normalcy over negativity, opportunity over obstruction, people over politics, quality of life issues over QAnon, reason over racism, substance over slander, triumph over tyranny, understanding over ugliness, voting rights over voter suppression, working families over the well-connected, xenio over xenophobia, yes, we can over you can't do it, and zealous representation over zero-sum confrontation. And that's it. No more text in the book, just images. That was it. Like I said, it was really, really quickly. And so I would like to point out about that. It's a pretty quick read. And why I wanted to do a review of it was to see, would this be good for somebody learning the ABCs? And I say no. Often when people are first learning the alphabet, they're little kids, like kindergarten age and whatnot. And a lot of these concepts will just fly right over their heads. And plus, some of the words are not, well, widely known enough. For example, for X, xenio over xenophobia. What does xenio mean? It means welcoming and hospitable. So that would be the opposite of being xenophobic, which is, son all the foreigners, make them stay away. And so, yeah, for that reason, yeah, for those two reasons, because these concepts might fly over the heads of little ABC Darians. That's the name, that's what we call someone learning the alphabet. And then also, yeah, just the words are not typical. Usually alphabet books have words that people recognize as soon as we hear them, even if we don't know them written down yet. Well, what I do like about this, what I think it would be good for, is let's say you want to expose a teenager. In the US, it's 18 years old. That's when we get the right to vote. And if you had an adolescent who are used to kind of heady concepts at the times and all that, that you just wanted to introduce to a lot of terms for politics and concepts for politics, it could be that way. But I would say you would have to balance it out with another book so as not to accidentally fully indoctrinate them with liberal politics as opposed to any other politics, which that might be your goal. Hey, if that's a goal, go for it. But yeah, if you wanted to teach, let's say your high school teacher's teaching a civics class or something like that, uh, yeah, you might want to keep it balanced out a little better. And so my overall review of this book is it's certainly worth the price. I got it for only like $13, $14, right? But I wouldn't recommend it if you want to buy an alphabet book for a little kid who's trying to learn the alphabet. I would not recommend it. It seems a little bit more like political merchandising to me than anything else. Um, but again, I would say it's worth the money because it's that cheap and it's cute and inspirational. And like a lot of political speeches, it's inspiring but a little scary at the same time. And so yeah, and so again, yeah, I would not recommend you buying this book if you want to give somebody an ABC book with the purpose of teaching them the alphabet. But I might recommend it if you know a teenager who's just going to come into voting age and all that, and you want to introduce them to some of the concepts that they'll have to understand. Um, yeah, I would say maybe it's good for that reason. Just be careful not to bias them too much because my politics are very liberal, so I agree wholeheartedly with most of this, but when you're trying to teach somebody something, you don't want them to automatically adopt your opinion. You want them to develop a full understanding and then develop their own opinion from there. So there's that. So back to my thank you for everybody for subscribing to the channel and for watching my videos. I appreciate that.